Where do dentists go to learn to be good dentists after dental school? One of those answers is Spear Education. I'm honored to be talking to Dr. Gary DeWood, Executive Vice President of Spear Education, about his journey through this dentisting world. He's friends with people here on Dental Nachos. First time he's been on our Nacho show. Welcome, Gary, to Talking Nachos, we call it here on Dental Nachos. So thrilled to have you. I like to, being a dentist is tough. Since you're running around in different rooms, you walk into a room, you forget which patient is there. So I always say you got to orient your mind as to who you're seeing, who you're talking to. So just orient our viewers a little bit about your journey. You can start now and go backwards. You can start a few decades ago and go forward, but the floor is yours.
I guess I'll start at the beginning and come forward.
Perfect.
I am one of the oldest of, I'm the eldest of 6 kids. And I dropped out of college after a year and a half. And by the time I came back, my younger brother, my next brother down, had caught me. And we both kind of decided at the same time that we both love chemistry. We're both chemistry and biology majors. So we both have 2 majors. And he decided he wanted to go to dental school. And so back then, he paid for me to take the DAT. And we drove to Cleveland. And because back then you couldn't just go to a computer, you had to go to a testing center. And the test was laid out and you had little breaks in between and stuff. Anyway, long story short, I did well. Let me put it that way. My brother Bill did not do as well. And he had what at that time was like the mean. I got a wonderful letter when I got my thing back, and it says you finished in the top 2% of individuals to ever take this test. And I said, maybe I should learn more about dentistry. So I did. Wound up going
I have a brother, so I think the more of that story is thank your brother, right? I have a brother. So.
I have thanked my brother. Actually, there's a corollary to that carries on later, because I told him that he owes me. He is a gifted chemist, and he founded a chemical company. And I'd been out of school maybe now a little less than 10 years. And he drove over he lives just south of Cleveland. He drove over to Pemberville, Ohio, which is where Cheryl and I practiced for he and his wife's dental appointments. And he walked in and I said, so what's going on? He goes, oh man, I'm trying to figure out, I got to figure out a way to either put away or invest $3 million by the end of the year. So we don't wind up paying all the tax. And I said, you owe me.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I said, every time I walk out and lock that door, this place is nothing but a liability.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a cool story is you never know what is good for you at the time or not. So it worked out well for both of you guys. Love that.
It did. And in fairness, he is what I would call a Spear or Pankey chemist at his company. One of his clients, it had a foundry. He designs foundry releasing agents. And they're very specific to alloys and stuff for sand molds. And one of his clients creates the gears that open and close drawbridges. Oh, cool. And they do 1 pour a day. So they make a sand mold over the course of a day, and then the next day they pour that one. Well, that one is now cooling because it takes 48 hours for it to cool. They go and they have another one. So that's kind of their assembly line. And I'll never forget, he showed up at my door on a Sunday night. It was probably about 10:30, and there's noise, and I go out and it's Bill. And I said, what are you doing here? And he goes, we're having trouble with, and he named the company, and he said, so they're going to be pouring at 4:30 and I'm going to be there at 3:45.
Wow.
I mean, and it's all about making whatever has to happen for your business be what you do.
Yeah.
And so I always said we kind of wound up at the same place, which is kind of fun.
Great message. Awesome start. So you went to dental school. Where'd you go?
Case Western.
Case Western.
And I got the two best things I've gotten ever in my life. One of them was a degree in dentistry. And the other one is that I met this young lady who sat next to me. Her maiden name was Davis. So they made us sit next to each other. And at the end of 2 years, by then we had figured out it was way cheaper to buy 1 book. So we got married at the end of our 2nd year. We are still married, although I love to tell the story that we practiced together for 25 years. And then she left me, which she did as my dental partner. She went back to school and got an orthodontic certificate and a PhD.
I like that. I was just lecturing last night. Orthodontics, I call it fake dentists. Want to know why? They don't have to give an injection. So when I call it fake dentistry, I'm jealous of them. That's my jealousy coming out. You put down the lidocaine and you pick up telling assistants to do stuff. So I like that. So I like going through this story. And I think what would be valuable, Gary, and I haven't even done this on an interview before, but I like it, is when you get to a part in your journey that I think would be valuable for our audience. You're in dental school at Case Western, 1980, yep. Dental school, 2020. What are some of the things in your dental school journey that you feel is the same as now, right? Whether it's a challenge, whether it's reward, that whether you went to dental school now or 40 years ago, you still have to clear this hurdle.
So I was in dental school from 76 to 80. And in those years, I will tell you what was interesting was that I got to sort of witness the beginning of composite. Okay. There was really I never did a composite in dental school other than an anterior teeth, and there was no bonding. We didn't bond anything other than NuvaFill. And I don't even need to go into this because it was really a material that almost doesn't qualify anymore. But the point was being, I got to see the birth of something which has been really fun. And what I love to say is most of the things that I learned in dental school within a decade were dramatically different.
Yeah.
At 4+ decades, I would say that I don't even recognize exactly what I did on a day-to-day basis. And in some respects, I'm going to take a lesson from one of my mentors, a guy named Parker Mahan. And Dr. Mahan always told me this one time. He said, when I started out and I was trying to learn and I realized, wow, there's so much to learn here. And when I was young, I saw that as the challenge. He said, I got to a point in my career when I realized it was the gift of what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so cool to be in a profession where it's been totally reinvented in the course of one generation. Well, really pretty much in one generation of dentists. My youngest daughter graduated from dental school in 2014.
Oh, cool.
And her training was very different than mine. There's lots more stuff to learn, but she also, a lot of the basics are still there.
Fundamentals.
And yeah.
I always like to bring up my failed dreams, Gary. I wanted to play in the NBA. It didn't work out, but people talk about fundamentals and you need those. We'll talk about that through this. Is fundamentals should be considered fun. What is your daughter doing now?
Well, she had a practice in Bellevue, Washington. She had a neck issue and knew that if she didn't sell the practice, it was going to nosedive. And so she sold it and she's been working on that. And then she and her husband decided now was a good time to have a family. So on Labor Day, so 3 weeks ago, she had a baby. So
congratulations.
Our first grandchild, which is kind of fun. Luna. Hi, Luna.
That's a great name. It's great being a grandparent. I heard this great quote, before my dad passed away, as a great grandfather. Grandparents have a great job because they don't have to turn the children into good people. They just get to spoil them. So,
Amen. One of my favorite lines ever is a Bill Cosby line. And I realize that he's been, totally set aside, but still one of the best lines ever when he said, what you see here is not the person I grew up with. This is an old person trying to get into heaven.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you get to spoil the grandchild.
So your father's wisdom is well spoken. I love it.
You get to spoil the grandchild and, the things that you turn and say, my parents would never let me do that. You do. So tell me about this in the journey. I talk a lot about the 4 major decisions dentists make: finding a job, buying a practice, hiring an associate, selling practice. What did you do after dental school? What was even the information that you and your friends were saying? Are we going to go buy a practice? We're going to work as an associate, keep going on this journey through post-dental school.
Well, Cheryl and I did the same residency. So we did a GPR in a hospital, which I think was amazing. And then we both just decided, let's just get a job. So we got the same job, kind of at the same group practice in Cleveland, Ohio, and decided after probably about 1.5 years that our ultimate goal was going to be to have a practice. So we joined a practice in another part of Ohio near where we thought we wanted to live. And within 2 years, we had found a practice and purchased that practice. And it was a small practice. It was actually something that there's a small community in Ohio, Bowling Green, Ohio, where Pemberville is 8 miles from Bowling Green, Ohio. And so we knew we liked that area. My mother lives in Findlay, Ohio, which is just south of her. And I grew up in Toledo, Ohio. Cheryl's originally from Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Michigan. And so we decided kind of where we wanted to be. And I had my ears to the ground, and we kind of listened. We bought this practice, and when we bought the practice, it had 35 patients. It was a satellite of an office in Bowling Green that someone had gone over and put in a 3-chair in the middle of Pemberville, Ohio. The building we were in was built in 1868.
Cool.
Solid, brick along both walls and windows in the front and the back, 18 feet wide, 90 feet long. He decided he really didn't like being there, and so we bought that practice. Cheryl got a job in Toledo, which was drivable. And we figured that it would take a year or so to have enough of a practice to even have her join us. In 6 months, I didn't have time. And so she had to join us. I mean, it was crazy. People loved having us in the town.
One of the things I want to share is, I always say this to my wife, Gary, I don't interrupt, I just interject with good ideas, but what you're sharing is valuable.
Excellent.
This is really important to me for our audience to hear, because I'm an enormous fan of GPRs. And just 3 days ago on a Sunday, I was talking to a D3 third-year dental student. And I said, are you planning to do a GPR? And she said, I've had so much debt. I don't want to do it. I want to go out and practice. And for me, I did a multiple year GPR. It was so transformative for me with clinical skills, communication skills. So if some dental student was a D3 saying to one of the most premier educators in dentistry saying, why did you do a GPR? Would you do one again? I see you said it was amazing. Tell our audience the value of that year for you as a dentist.
So what I love talking about the one we did. We were residents in Dayton, Ohio. Miami Valley Hospital is the oldest dental residency in the United States. It was the first one ever. When you go there, the first year interns are not differentiated. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You get to spend 60% of your time in your chosen specialty. 40% of your time is every other rotation that every other intern does. So literally in my first week there, my first rotation that I was on full time was OB-GYN.
Wow.
I learned a lot. And what was fun being in that environment was I learned an incredible amount of medicine. For 6 months, although I was still doing the dental stuff, I was a full-time every morning anesthesiologist.
Wow.
We did anesthesia in the OR. And I don't know, I have like 500 op notes where I'm the anesthesiologist for the case.
That's cool.
And what was fun is what I enjoyed about all of that was learning the medicine. And then also it reinforced for me why I don't want to be a physician. I love physicians, right, and I appreciate them. I don't want to be one. If I was, I would probably be an orthopedic person because they do a lot of the same kind of idea things we do.
Yeah. And I'll add in is what you share is that my multiple year general practice residency at Albert Einstein in Philadelphia, when someone says, what's the point of, I got to see like a liver transplant. And they say, what's the point of that?
Amen.
You get to learn how to learn. The medical model is very different. You get to learn how to learn. What was really valuable for me is I learned how to receive feedback well. I saw that the medical residents had bigger, stronger doctors they would follow around. And when they got feedback on what they were doing, they didn't go cry in a corner. They didn't say that's nonsense. They received it and grew as professionals. And that's why I think the dental school model, I can champion some, I can criticize some, but there's just not time in that short time frame to develop those skills. And I just encourage people to spend that year doing that. They won't regret it.
I would tell you would never regret that. I've been a couple of ADA commissions, and so the question around my undergraduate degrees in education, and so this was near and dear to me. One of the interesting things for me is that it would be way better probably for all of us in dentistry to do a 1 or 2 year residency than to ever take a board.
Totally agree.
And the reason that I can make that argument, even though I get a lot of pushback from dentists, is tell me as an educator, if you have a test that 98.6% of the people who take it pass within 2 tries, what are you testing for?
Right. Yeah.
It's pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's why a number of states, New York notably, you do a GPR, you get a New York license.
Yeah, New York. And also I hire amazing new dentists. I was a new dentist. And I think what's hard to explain to dental students that in the private practice business model, you just can't test stuff out. The patient can't say, hey, I'm going to have my associate try to do this implant. It's going to take 2.5 hours for her to learn, but that's built into these GPRs and AGDs, where
Exactly.
you are the frontline practitioner with these
Yep.
bigger, stronger dentists standing next to you. And also, it's very normal in a GPR AGD for the resident to say, I'm going to get my attending and ask them how this implant thing works. And
Amen.
the patient doesn't freak out. They say, I'm here at a residency program. So now we'll go to the biggest decision of a dentist's life, I believe. You're buying a dental practice, you grow it with your wife. If someone's watching right now saying, take us back to that experience of buying your first dental practice. What was awesome? What caused anxiety? What would you do different?
Well,
what would you do the same?
The anxiety is, of course, making the financial commitment. Because while it would be disingenuous to say that you weren't excited to be in dentistry because of the potential financially, it's also true that that wasn't the main motivator, but I realized that it has to be important. And so it seemed to me that finding a way to run the business would also be useful, so that you could decide what kind of dentistry you wanted to do. And having said all that, I will tell you this: we were driving up to sign all the final papers. I had to stop the car, get out, and go throw up on the side of the road.
Yeah, I can
you know,
see that.
And it's not that I wasn't confident that we could do it. It was just that the angst is a powerful thing, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, one of my favorite lessons from one of my teachers, who I had met just before that, and one of the first things he ever told me was, whenever you feel that thing in your stomach, instead of immediately like retreating, say, what is that about, and investigate it.
Yeah.
What is it? Why is it there? It's there for a good reason. Why is it there? And to this day, actually, I just had an opportunity to share that with someone who is just beginning to go out and speak in front of dentists. And she said, I don't know if I can do this. I'm feeling this. And I said, I have never had a time when I didn't feel it.
Right.
Ever. Never. And I've been out. I got invited to do something when I was about 9 years out of dental school, and at the Chicago Midwinter Meeting, and I did it, and I loved it, and I've been doing it ever since. There has never been a time when just when it's time to happen, and my stomach is like, okay.
And I think that's a really.
I wonder if I'm going to be okay. Will I be good enough?
Yeah, I just did a lecture in New Jersey last night. My openers were two guys talking about giving them money for the ADA. So they weren't the easiest openers. We didn't start till 7:36. And I think anxiety, it makes you pay attention. It makes you focused, but it shouldn't make you frozen. So I think anxiety can make you focus, whether it's your first crown prep. Just don't let it make you frozen. And what I believe makes you focus is your training. I tell people, learning how to speak to dentists. I have this amazing piece recommended by one of my friends, Dr. Mitchell Rubenstein, How to Speak by Patrick Winston, has 12 million YouTube views. And I tell the audience midway through my talk, I say, does it seem like I'm confident and I know what I'm doing? They say, yeah. I say, there's no natural talent to speaking in front of 50 dentists eating chicken Parmesan. It's training. So I tell dentists, there's no natural talent in doing a crown impression and temporary quickly. It's training. So I think that's a key point. So you buy this practice, keep us going on the journey. How long did you guys have this practice for?
Well, we bought it in 1984 and had it until 2004. So I had it for 20 years. And that was when Cheryl decided to go back to school. At that point, I sold the practice, and I figured I would wind up. Cheryl is why our kids had hope for their IQs to get regression to the mean.
Gotcha.
And she has always been very academic, incredibly, just really, really smart. When she decided to go back to school, she took the GRE because she had been out of school for years. And so they really didn't have anything to grade her on. So she took the GRE, even though it wasn't required to apply at all the ortho programs, but she knew she better. Her score got her a lifetime membership in Mensa as a lifetime member. She doesn't ever pay dues.
Wow. That's amazing.
Well, that's Cheryl. So she got offered a fellowship concurrent with her residency at the University of Tennessee. And what they wanted was the person who was the chair of that program, actually, he had written her a really nice letter. And it said, basically that I wanted to interview you this year. She was just finishing her or her master's was just not, I think she was not quite done with it yet. And he sent a note and said, I wanted to interview you this year. I found your application incredibly interesting. But my committee said we should let you finish your master's. So she showed me this and said, wasn't it nice? This is what Dr. Vaden wrote. And so I looked at it and I said, oh, he wants you to call him. So she said, oh, no, he doesn't. I said, why would he take time to write a note like that if he didn't want you to call him? So she called him. So they talked on the phone for probably 45 minutes when she called. And at the end of the conversation, he said, because this said, they were doing the interviews. This was on Wednesday. They were doing the interviews the next Monday, Tuesday. He had said, is there any way you can be here on Monday and Tuesday?
That's great.
So she went and interviewed. And after she was home she hadn't been home even a full day. And Jim called back and said, would you be willing to come back and spend some time with me? I want to talk to you about some things. I'll be sending you an airplane ticket and we'll be putting you up while you're here.
Wow.
So they flew her back. And what they were looking for is that the person who had founded that ortho program, when he passed away, had started this fund. And the fund was to be used for any educational purpose that dealt with orthodontic education. And Jim was always looking for somebody to take his job. And he said, I know you're not even an orthodontist yet, but I think you're the person who can do this job. So he wanted her to stay, and that it was contingent that the trade-off be, they paid her a nice salary actually to be there, that she stayed for 3 years after her 3-year program. And she's always been an academic, and that was always what she wanted to do anyway. And so she wound up doing that. So I couldn't stay in Ohio. I figured I was moving to Memphis.
So I love this story. I want to bring up a couple points, and it's an amazing story about your wife. And I see how she left you in practice, not in life, but in practice. Tell us, I talk a lot about building your dental core, your mind skills, your hand skills, your verbal skills, to get into your heart skills. As a practice owner, right? When you finish throwing up, you buy the practice. There's so many trends that are just the same 40 years later. Let's just talk. I want to get into the spear thing in a minute, but let's talk about mind and business skills. Did you accept dental insurance? Did you not accept dental insurance? Were you totally unprepared for the business aspect of running a practice? How did you make these decisions?
I will tell you for sure, I was totally unprepared for the business aspects of a practice. The only business aspect of practice in any way, shape, or form that we had was that we got to spend a week in the FDA clinic. Okay. And that was when expanded function dental assistants were a brand new thing. And so that was part of managing a practice and managing somebody working with you. And on our fourth year, Dick Miller walked in one morning and he held up a pegboard and said, this is a pegboard. And we talked for an hour about how you would record the things you did. That was the extent, I mean this sincerely, it was the extent of the business training that occurred.
And I want to share, you have said what everyone said. I find this incredibly irresponsible of dental school, because what I want to share is a dental practice is like a 4-year-old child that doesn't grow up. I have one in my house. To be able to care for that 4-year-old child, you have to be good at clinical dentistry, but you must be able to run the business, because if you go out of business, you can't help anyone. Why do you think that dental school is so resistant to infusing real world skills so dentists don't feel this way? We're like,
well, first let me set, I'm actually going to say that you're speaking from your time. I promise you that in 1980, you did not have to be even a decent business person to make a lot of money.
Tell us more about
dentistry.
that. They're going to like, the young dentist going to like this.
I'm totally serious about this. In fact, I've always been interested in the business aspect, and I'll talk about why in a minute. But in the 1970s and for most of the 80s, you didn't have to know anything about business to make a lot of money doing dentistry. A lot.
Like that's the JBR.
And so why would there be this motivation in the school to think that they had to teach you that? I mean, you don't have enough time to learn the clinical stuff anyway. Even then, today it's hopeless.
Right.
But today, the realization is that if you don't know how to do that, you may not be able to stay in the profession. One of my favorite lines, I would get up in front and I would say, dentistry is a profession in which you can make a whole lot of money while paying zero attention to business. This is really, really bad.
Right. Yeah.
because people thought it was good. I said, no, it's not. It's terrible, because then as the business changes, you're going to get caught.
Right.
And if you don't pay attention to the business stuff today, you can't survive. My daughter graduated with more than $500,000 in debt.
Tell me
because Cheryl and I
what you
believe.
think. Tell me what you think, Dr. Gary. Just if I was to say, here's 2 minutes, what do you think about the enormous cost of dental school, and my school being 3 times as much as it was 20 years ago? How do you think that's influencing or impacting the profession?
Well, it's definitely becoming, by default, it becomes a profession in which it's going to take you 1/3 of your practice life to pay for the education. Okay. So I think then what you got to decide is, and by the way, I can still sit down. I had a father whose son wants to be a dentist, and he's trying to talk him out of it. And then he called me and he said, can you come and talk to us? So I did. And he got angry with me because I sat down and did an ROI with his son that showed that, what do you want out of this? What do you call a decent living? You can make that. You can do that. And you can still pay that debt. You can. Okay. And he was angry with me. And I said, well, your anger is about your personal feelings around this. Why do you feel that the numbers are lying? They don't lie.
Right. Well, you manage that young human being's expectations. And that was a valuable time for him, because he had somebody in the profession say, this is what this looks like. Here's what's going to happen. Are you going to be satisfied? Our patients will say, I'll be satisfied with a denture. And later they're totally dissatisfied. But instead of it being a lower denture, it's your career. So I think it gives you a lot of credit, Dr. Gary, for sitting down and explaining to this young person, this is what this really looks like. I think if we did more of that, we'd get more people in the profession who want to be here.
Yeah. Here's what you have to decide. What would it be worth to you? I mean, you know what? This is the angle for me. I've talked to a number of people who are the children of physicians that I've known well, and they talk about stuff. And so we talk. And one of the things that, by the way, way more physicians tell their kids don't go into medicine than dentists tell their kids not to go into dentistry.
That happened to me when I was in dental school.
And so I have a good friend who, I mean, the kids grew up together. And so it's like Sharon and I are like the second group of parents, because we did everything together. We traveled together. We did stuff together with the families. And he said, I really want to go to medical school. And I said, what's keeping you from going? And he said, well, my dad says it's a terrible profession, and you'll never be able to make any money. And I said, how much money do you want to make? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, well, what do you think it would take to live? How do you want to live? And so we got talking about that. And by the time we were done talking about it, he had to realize that here's what you're going to give up.
Right.
And if you think, so what? I get to be a doctor, then do it.
That's the part. Those are the people that should do any career.
Amen.
Last night I was out. I'm a speaker like you, and I would say this is what being a speaker looks like. You get paid less than we did before. I love speaking. I do this, but if you want to get into speaking now in 2022, this is the road it's going to look like. Is that important to you or not? So I think it's because then you get people doing jobs, dentistry, any job, who really want to do that. I like that. So let's go back to your practice for a second, Gary. These people they've never sponsored me, but I'm a big fan of New Balance. Okay. New Balance sneakers, right?
Uh-huh.
So you're in practice, and there's a practice owner watching saying, should I take Spear? Should I take Pankey? Should I take Coy? Should I take Dawson? Should I do clinical mastery? But before we get to that, when you were a practice owner, when did you have this moment where you're like, I got to learn more than what even my dental school and GPR taught me to do the dentistry I want to do, to be the professional I want to do? Or did that happen? Start to take.
Actually, it happened. It happened for me in dental school. One of a case, you had what was called a preceptor. That person was pretty much in charge of all your clinical experience. It was a GP who practiced half time. They were with us 3 days, 1 week, 2 days the next. And then they had a practice. They were out practicing. And it was an awesome way to do it, because you basically had to do stuff in there, and that person could decide. And John came to me at Christmas of fourth year, and he said, I want to spend as much time with you as you want. And I said, okay. And he said, what I'm telling you is, at the end of the day, just bring me all of your cards. And if you have questions, find me in the day. And he cut me loose. And one of the things he said to me when we became good friends, and one of the things he said to me at the end of it, I said, so what's the advice as I'm leaving? And he said, sometime in the next 24 to 36 months, you're going to want to buy a couch or a car. Go to the Pankey Institute instead.
Oh, I love that.
So I did.
I was using my sneakers as people say Nike, Reebok, Puma, Adidas, but when we talked before this, you said something really valuable that I think so dentists love to know, which burr is Dr. Jason Smithson using? Which camera does Dr. Todd Fleischman hold? And I get that desire, Gary, to want to know that, but you said all these truths are the same, or the truth
doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, that's not fair. All the ones that you named, I would say truth is truth. Nobody can own the truth. It exists. And all of those places are wonderful places, because I would guarantee you that all the ones that you named, the philosophy of the practice of dentistry and the clinical dentistry is the same. In other words, they're all gonna end up at the same sort of a point.
Yeah.
From the clinical dentistry, because truth is truth. That, by the way, this is a hard one when you're young, but truth changes as you learn. Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about it. And so for that reason, I would say go wherever you're motivated to go. I went everywhere. I spent time at the Pankey Institute. I met Frank Spear and John Coyce when they were practicing together, and I spent a bunch of time out in their practice. I went to LVI. And that was later, because I started in the 80s with the Pankey Institute and with Frank, and then with John, because John joined him a little bit later than that. I went to, there's an organization called FACE. I just went and I listened. And Cheryl and I have always both shared that, which meant I didn't have any explaining to do.
That I really like, and I want to talk about two people, Gary. Well, first, your aha moment. I love this soda, AHA. I hope they sponsor me too, Gary. I'm always trying to get some good people to support us. But your aha moment wasn't what you did; it was your mentor. Why did you listen to him? Because you wanted to buy a couch, you wanted to buy a car, but you said, this person, what did he do? I would say to kindly annoy you to say, I'm not going to purchase this car. I'm going to invest in Pankey. I want to know more about him.
John, in dental school, John treated me like a colleague as soon as his responsibility to be with me began.
That I love.
There were no rules. And that's not really fair, because there were. But I mean, he basically said, what do you hope to learn? What do you hope to get out of this year you have with me? And so I had to give him some answers to that. Actually, the way that we first met, I was very active. I've always been a big mouth. I was the president of the dental school student body my last 2 years in the dental school, when I was a third year and a fourth year. And I went into that arena rather than my class, because I learned when I got there that all of the funds were in the dental school organization, not the class one.
Yeah.
At Case, all of the student activity fees paid by all the grad students in a grad school go to the political organization at that grad school. So we had a lot of money. And so I knew that there were things that we could do. So I did that, and I got really interested and involved. So my second year, when I was a second year, I was the VP, and I was president both other 2 years. But that meant that I had a lot of things that I did outside of the school. I traveled with the dean, and we would go do stuff and go places. And so I didn't have my third year requirements done. So I had to be, officially, I wasn't supposed to move to the fourth year clinic. And the dean basically said, no, he can move. So that's bad right away. That's not good. I actually said, why did you do that? And he said, because you're ready, you can move. And so John is sitting in there when I'm coming in, and he says, Mr. DeWood, nice to see you. I already knew him, we had met. He said, maybe this year we can teach you some stuff about dentistry. And I said, Dr. Kelly, I am so looking forward to it, more than you could possibly know. While we're at it, I'm hopeful that I can teach you a few things about life.
That's great. And that's who was related. I love this story because
he like fell off the chair, but he loved.
Well, the other thing I'll share, Gary, and two quick stories of mine is, so two dental students came to my event a few years ago. Pasquale Venuti was here from Italy. It's an amazing dentist. And they said, I'm not doing a GPR. And I said, why not? And they said, we want to go and practice. I said, go ask people at this event about doing a GPR. I think you should do a GPR. You're going to be glad you did it. They both did GPRs. They just had a baby. They're great. And now one knows how to place implants. They said, Paul, we're so glad we did this GPR. And if people are listening, much like the John there, or what you've done, I had zero self-interest in that advice. Whether they did a GPR or not, I wasn't going to make any more money. I didn't own the GPR. And when John said that to you, his total interest was kindly annoying you into being a better dentist and professional. And he was saying, you're going to want to buy a car. Don't buy that car. And you're glad you did it. Now, if we can switch over to one of my favorite people, Dr. Todd Fleischman, who you know from Spear, he talks about the value of relationships and how that relationship with the dean there was so key for you. Relationships in life, and especially in dentistry, are important. One thing I found about Spear that I've been amazed by is, even for this big place, people say, oh, I know Dr. Carl Steinberg. I work with him. I remember Dr. Todd Fleischman. My group is watching, and I like to give them an idea of what to expect. Let's say you're 2 years into practice ownership, you've taken 0 CE of significance. Tell us about the Spear. I don't know if we call it a track. People have talked about facially generated treatment plan. Bring us back to 101 of someone buying and say, I want to learn more from you.
So for me, the first thing that every dentist should do. My daughter did this as a third-year dental student. Facially generated treatment plan. It's a different way of looking. And this is straight from Frank. Frank came up with this whole concept in 1984 to treat every patient as if they're a dentist. When you're thinking about what's possible, anything's possible. All I need is a hot instrument to move the wax.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want to do here. And that theory kind of carried in to then adding other things into that to allow you to come up with answers. Okay, what do you see? But the primary focus of facially generated treatment planning is, what do you see? And then that allows you to have questions that you can answer. I think that it is what we call it our introduction. I will tell you that when I spent 5 years as a clinical director from 03 to 08 at the Pankey Institute. And so many of my friends, and I love the Pankey Institute. I have lots of friends still there. They asked me, so we want to come do something at Spear. What do you think we should do? And I said, well, I think you should do one of two things. Either come to facially generated treatment planning. And then both of them said, well, isn't that like your first course? And I said, yeah, you're going to love it. Or take restorative design. And the reason for that is, if you haven't done a prep course since you've been out of dental school, and by the way, most dentists my age had not, because you can do prep courses. And I said, you will love that. Well, they wound up doing both. And both of them told me that those were two of the best workshops they had ever done in their whole lives. When they came, both of them had been out more than 30 years. Wow. And yet, that's why. And my purpose in saying that is that facially generated treatment planning, I believe, sets the tone for everything we do from that moment forward. And it doesn't matter where you choose to do it.
And that's a fundamental and foundational course that it sounds like a dentist would benefit from at any age or stage in their journey.
Absolutely. It's just fun. And you can apply it immediately. I mean, you immediately change how you look at things.
And then once
that's the big one, that's the one that I think is the one that everybody should take. One of the benefits that I have is being able to offer that to my daughter, and she loved it. Fortunately, at the school she was at, the clinical care coordinators in her bay were two people who had been participants at the Pankey Institute while I was there full time. So I knew them, and so they encouraged that. And in fact, a number of students from her year came and did things at Spear, which was really fun.
That's awesome exposure. Now, and then also, you know, his sense of humor is as dry as the wine he likes, Dr. Jason Smithson. So him and I have become friends over the years. And, you know, I made a shirt one time that said the resin rock star is coming to Philadelphia. So, you know, we then have people like a Dr. Jason Smithson, who is, you know, a high level dentist. you also could take courses from him. And would these be more focused tracks or more focused?
That's definitely more. That one is about composite. One that he teaches is absolutely about composite, and it's having the ability to do as much with composite as you'd like, which means usually it means layering and getting a lot of different colors and effects, or becoming way more efficient if you choose not to do all of those steps. It doesn't matter. Both of those things accomplish the same goal, which is allow you to go to do whatever you'd like to do. And it's really fun, actually. When the first ones that he did when he first joined us was the pandemic hit. Excuse me. And so he was in the United Kingdom. He set up a studio in his house, and we were live in Scottsdale. We had him up there in the studio, and Jeff Bonk from Chicago and I were the live faculty there. Cool. And we basically did the course twice with him not being in the United States. I will tell you, it's way more fun with him there, because in person, everything is more fun in person.
Yeah.
I hate to say I'm zoomed out because we're on Zoom, but I'm pretty zoomed out. Lots of stuff. It's just more fun.
This is my thing. I tell Dennis, I have an online platform, Spirit's an online platform. Online is for awareness, in person is for action. So it's like, it's great to consume something online for awareness. I feel proud that I bring, a Dr. Jason Smithson or Dr. Todd Fleischman to my group, that they wouldn't see these people otherwise, right? So they're aware that these things can happen. And then for action, go in person. Now, Dr. Todd and I are close friends, and he has a fee-for-service practice here in Philadelphia. He's speaking for us soon. One of the topics that him and I talk about a lot, and I know you like, is communication. So we talk about learning how to prep. Dentists love that. Occlusion, they love that. But nothing happens unless you enhance your communication skills. I know you're passionate about this. If a dentist was watching out there saying, I'm taking 72 CE courses on crowns and extractions and implants, but zero on how to talk to patients, how are they going to have a lopsided dental course, so to speak? Or what is going to happen to that dentist?
Well, I would tell you that part of what I try to bring to every workshop is, how are you going to be able to do this when you go home? So I'm a lurker. I know that we had not met until you initiated that. Thank you for that. That was
Dr. Jason. We were on the Zoom with him. He was great. I have to thank Jason. We were on the Zoom, and he said to reach out to Gary.
I have been watching what you're doing and reading things for a long time. So it's always been interesting to me how the topic of dental insurance comes up.
Yeah.
And especially among young people, because they see it as being so confining. And I read a whole lot of negative stuff. And that's not just your generation. A lot of older dentists, they see it as something evil. And I believe that gets in their way. And they communicate the wrong things to patients. So I would love to share some things around that if I might. But
sure, I love it. We love to learn.
Okay. If you want to change the mindset around dental insurance in your practice, whose minds have to change first?
I'm going to say the dentist, but I don't know if I'm on the right track.
Everybody on the team?
Yeah.
Nothing will ever occur in a patient's mind until it's already happening in yours. For fun, actually, I did a little segment of this for our summit, and I put 2 books up there. One of them is called The Kabbalion, which I recommend. It's amazing. It's from the 1st century AD. The other one is called As a Man Thinketh. And they're both excellent books. There's also a newer one called The Probability Principle. In this one, all those same concepts about how your thoughts control your world is compared and contrasted with quantum mechanics. Because I love physics, and the quantum mechanics thing was really astounding, because I can't even get my head around it, is that any interaction between 2 particles has an infinite number of possible outcomes. Wow. And all of them are real. That's what's wild. Yeah. So I started saying this years ago, and I have to give credit Rachel for this, but she said this in a meeting one time. She said, why do we say the words dental insurance in the same sentence? We never did again, ever. No matter what patient said. It's a benefit plan, and there's dental benefits. And when people make negative comments, all of us in the practice, we trained ourselves to do this and we practiced this. If you came into me and you said, well, what do you mean my insurance doesn't pay? And I would say, well, why should they pay?
Right.
And then I just wait, because you will hear things. Here's what I love saying to people, and this is, I'm sure this has happened to you, but patients will come in and they'll say, well, I have this insurance, but it sucks. That ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, constantly. Sometimes they say before, yeah,
They say it. They say it. What you want to say to them is they all suck, but don't. And don't even have that in your mind. I will tell you this honestly. I am an enthusiastic cheerleader.
Yeah.
Dental benefit plans. Why would I not be? I am just really, really happy that you're going to get assistance toward whatever level of dental health you've decided is right for you. So could you help me clearly understand what level you've decided on? And that is my honest belief. I'm not mouthing words.
I love this. I'll just add quickly, so I don't do but we have an awesome prosthodontist in our office, a periodontic, so I get the opportunity and honor to do larger implant cases. And, let's say it's $38,000 and they say, my insurance only covers $2,000. I say, you're luckier than someone who doesn't have any. And in that one moment, they feel better, So instead of making,
here's what happens. As soon as you react in support of what they think it should do, they believe that they're getting ripped off, not by you.
Right.
And the fact is that they're not. It is exactly what it is supposed to be. In fact, I'm in the middle of writing an article and somebody sent me a thing and said, I think you already know this. Anybody in any benefit plan can opt out and pay any person any amount they want.
For sure.
No matter whether you're contracted with them or not. That was codified by in 2013 by HIPAA. Okay, that became law. Prior to that, you could do it. Because it's still there was no loss. Was my point. There can be no fraud if there was nothing fraudulently obtained.
Right.
And so I was having people sign away. You asked a question earlier and I didn't answer it. The only plan I have ever been associated with was Delta Dental of Ohio. I quit in 1988. And I quit because they changed the definition of UCR and they started holding back funds to recapitalize the company. So I quit. Do you know the original definition of UCR? By the way, the words are the same, but the definition is very different. Usual, customary, and reasonable was a statement that was made so that you could file a report so that any services that went beyond that, you could be compensated for. I'll give you an example of that. I once did 2 premolar crowns on a woman who has Parkinson's disease. I didn't strap her in the chair to do it, which means I had to get into her rhythm and do the prep. It took me 4 times what it normally would take me to do her dentistry. I submitted that to Delta Dental. They paid 80% of my 4 times fee. That's UCR. That's how it was designed. They changed the rules. UCR is now your fee, and we don't ever pay more than that. In fact, now we're going to pay a percentage of a maximum that we determine. And so when the rules changed, I left. Okay, the rules, you also know that Delta Dental was founded by dentists, right?
Yeah, I know that kind of always this stings a little bit when I remember that one, Gary. Founded by our own people.
The ultimate Frankenstein story.
Yeah. So let's get real. I love this, and we will wrap. I won't keep you too much longer because it's so good. Let's get real for a minute. So you're giving great value, and I love the way you reframe. I talk about reframe how we think about dental insurance. I have a 6-sentence thing that says, that's a great question. A lot of patients ask about it. Dental insurance is not really insurance. It works like a coupon with restrictions. At this practice, we will do the best job possible to maximize the benefit of your coupon. 6 sentences, we're done, right? And I am recently out of network. Dr. Todd is fee for service, who's coming to speak with us. Dr. Travis is in network with PPOs. Be a practice owner 8 years into their career. They're investing in CE. They want to do more, but they have this restrictive relationship and network with dental insurance. And they're just flat out scared to change it, right? It's a reasonable feeling.
So I'll tell you, can tell you how to start it. First of all, change your own mindset around it. It's not restrictive at all to the patients. The patients can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Any person can walk in your office in any box they want to be in. If you don't like them in that box, that's your problem, not theirs.
Like that.
Be willing to not do something when you can't do it at the level. See, here's the deal. The person who precipitated me writing this article was really concerned that he might be accused of fraud because he was charging a higher fee than other people did for things that was everybody else is doing it for that fee. Is that fraudulent for me to charge more? And I said, first of all, you're talking about a different kind of fraud for me. From a legal standpoint, I'm not a lawyer, but no fraud can occur because you can charge any fee you want.
Yeah.
There's no law. It's not a matter of law what you choose to ask for your services. There's no law. What's happened with benefit plans and the way that they've restricted what you can get paid is this. They take the dentist and they put them in the middle of an ethical dilemma that is involved in a business decision. And this is really hard. What part are you not going to do?
Right.
Because, by the way, I'm going to argue this. If you sign the contract and you can provide the service that you would be happy with in your mouth for the fee they offer you, then do it.
Right.
If you can't, decline. I'd love to be able to do that with you. However, your benefit plan does not allow me to charge you enough to give you the level of quality that is the minimum that I will accept for you. Just say it to their face. They can opt out for one thing, you know. People think they won't do it. I get emails at least once a week from somebody who was in the workshop who says, I thought nobody would ever do that.
Yeah, because
this person just do it.
Because you know what the thing is that, Gary, and I say this all the time with the weird words we say, like, you know, hopeless and failure. We make it weird. The dentist makes it weird, patient normal. And if we de-weirdify, and also what we do a really good job of, some within our control, some without, is confusing them. And a confused buyer tunes out. So it becomes making it weird. So I think that this is just a great way for all dentists listening to understand we have total control of what happens in our practice. I mean, how many times does dentist say, my schedule's so busy, I can't believe this happened? I go, you made the schedule. You did the 45-minute hygiene. You can go back and do an hour hygiene. And I think that it's so key for, especially at this critical juncture, because some dental, and I'll call them spoiled guac PPO, they're decreasing fees, what they pay dentists. They're writing letters saying we're paying less. So is this what maybe I could call people?
Understand this. That is their responsibility to their clients. Yeah. It's a business. There's a difference between business ethics and professional ethics. In business ethics, the only ethic is to maximize profit. That's what business is, period. Their responsibility to their clients is to pay the dentist as little as possible and find a way to pass some of that on to their clients. That is their job, and so that they remain profitable. The issue we have is that we don't just get to function in that world. We have to function in the professional ethics world, and that's the ethical dilemma that now gets tied up in a business decision.
Yeah.
And they're different. They are different types of ethics. Neither is right and neither is wrong. They are what they are. What you got to do is I believe that the first step in being freed from that is just understanding the struggle and accepting it. If you choose to be involved with a PPO plan, more power to you. It's a business decision.
Right.
Here's the other thing I'm going to recommend. The only way for you to target the value of that is to charge every fee you put in there as if there was no benefit plan involved.
Yeah.
I refuse. I don't even work with people who will load the fees from the benefit plan in their computer. I ain't going to work with you. You get the wrong mindset.
Right.
You need to charge your fee and write it off of your collection, not your production. It's not reduced production. You produced exactly the same thing.
Right.
That is the benefit plan company trying to keep you in the dark and not understanding what's happening. Write it off. I would argue this. I just did this with someone who was new to a community, young couple practicing together. They got a practice. They're already involved in plans, and they were saying, but they're only paying this much. Well, how much are they writing off? Well, we're not exactly sure. We'll have to go dig all that up because they're charging out the fee because they loaded all the fees in their computer.
Yeah,
And I said,
I totally agree with it. I don't do as much consulting as you, but it does drive me nacho nuts because you can't even get the right story if they don't bill what they normally bill.
I sat with these people and I added it up, and this practice had written off. In other words, if you say, and that's not fair. They had expensed $412,000 of a 1.2 practice to pay for the benefit of treating those patients. Now, in a practice where you're new to town, you don't have enough people to put in your chair, that sort of an upfront investment actually can return some good dividends.
Yeah.
But in a practice where you are packed, tell me why you would invest that much and you already have a reputation. And so I think what we need to do in dentistry is quit bitching about dental benefit plans. They are what they are. How do we find a way to have all of us understand that and learn to be better business people? And by the way, I promise you, Heartland Dental's figured that out.
Yeah, well, and I want to just take one more piece of value before we're up. I like so the dentist changes the mindset, right, Gary? So in the beginning of this year, we went out of network with our last dental insurance, our biggest one, So I feel like I'm a good leader, but I did not do a good enough job because we got the letter, we did the email, I trained my team, but my wonderful team was coming to me saying, Paul, you're not on the front lines with these conversations. What do you want us to really say to these patients? So I made a 6-minute video, which I've shared downtown, that says, hey, we do not want your dental insurance to have a seat at the table when making the best decisions about your teeth. We will gladly use it like the coupon it is. So then now they have this training. So when they have these conflict-oriented conversations, they know what to say. But many times the dentist can change their mindset. But the teams at the front, Gary, what would you say? How do they train their team? Because they're going to be the bad guys. They're going to be the one telling Mrs. Smith, we're not in network with Spoiled Walk PPO. How do they then train the team?
Well, they train the team to do exactly what you did. I just found that we're gonna take the highest ground possible. I will tell you what we did the day that we finalized our Delta Dental thing, and we finally sent them the letters and said we're done. I ran newspaper ads in 2 places. Newspapers were the only way to communicate with people really then. And I took a full page one in Fremont and one in Bowling Green, which were most of our people came from one of 2 days. And it basically said that we, unfortunately, we're going to have to end our relationship with Delta Dental as a providing office. And they ran through some stuff. I didn't blame them for anything. I just said that they had decided that they would unilaterally withhold part of the compensation. And unfortunately, Cheryl and I were put in a position where we had to make a choice. And then in giant black letters, it said, we chose you. And I had a picture of the office with all of us standing on the front porch, and the whole team. The day those ran, 76 people called the practice and tried to make an appointment.
That's awesome. I love how you reframe that and turn that whole story in a way that showcases.
There's nothing bad. Here's what we trained everyone to say, and we practice this. No, we are really happy that you have a benefit plan. We are. It means you're going to get help. I think it's a wonderful gift from whoever has chosen to give that to you. I think it's great. I'm happy that you're going to have assistance. And then just stop talking and allow them to say something. There's nothing to bitch about if we don't bitch. I'm not going to bitch. And we decided we're not going to do that. And there were literally, there was a different time. And I will say that the things that happen today, it is different today. People are different today. Patients are different today than when I started and when I was actively doing this, which was in the 80s. Because this all happened in 88, 89 when we quit. It is different. And so I'm going to admit that. Then I'm going to tell you it's no different because people are the same. Okay. But what's happened is there are some cultural expectations that have changed. Yeah. And because of that, it doesn't change how you can talk about it. I'm just going to say this, here's what I've experienced. Everybody that I have had the opportunity to work with in my career who has changed the belief in their practice about what dental benefit plans are and what they aren't, and turned it into a positive. I'm happy. Excellent.
Yeah.
Why don't you participate? Unfortunately, we had to choose them or you. We chose you.
I love that. And one of the things kind of as we wrap up here, we shared doing a GPR is a good idea. You're glad you did it. Most, if not all dentists are really glad they did it. In my experience, and someone who's been in network, most, if not all dentists, after reducing their relationship and network with insurances, 10 to 5, 5 to 2, 2 to 0, do not go the other way. They do not say, oh man, I want to go back into that. And I think it's for both morale and money reasons, Gary, that they say the thing that patients say to us when they get that implant case or full mouth rehab, I wish I had done this sooner.
Yes, I would say that's true. And then I'm going to temper that with this. However, it doesn't mean that it was a bad thing you had to get rid of. Think of it as a business decision.
Yeah, no, it's just transformation.
How much money are you going to spend on marketing?
Yeah, it's a transformation, and transformation doesn't mean that what you were before was terrible.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yes, but I would totally agree with you, Paul. Everybody says this is more fun.
Yeah, and you just do not have this other thing impact you. Well, this has been so great. I mean, it's going to get this recorded. I mean, it's been recorded. Going to get from how, if someone watched this, I know everyone knows Spear, knows you, but if they want to just reach out to you to ask you a question, ask you how much money your brother's making now, ask you how to do Spear, ask you about your amazingly brilliant wife.
Way more than me.
Yeah. How can they do that, Gary?
Well, they can email me directly, which is gdewood@speareducation.com, or go to the website. And actually, even at the website, if you come in and you say, I'd like to communicate with Gary DeWood, they'll send you back my email. You can call me. I hand out my cell phone number. So happy,
awesome.
206-612-0616.
Awesome. We'll put that in the chat. This is great. Every time Jason comes to speak, I put a bottle of wine in his room. But for facilitating this, I'll spend a little more on Jason when he comes to Philly. He'll get an even nicer bottle. Well, thanks so much, Gary. This was awesome.
Be sure and tell him it's because of me.
I will, for sure.
All right. This has been real. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it very much. Look forward to some more opportunities to share stuff with each other.